Committee, NIMS Communications Unit Workgroup Update. Information discussing Jesse.
All right, I'll give you guys the update here on where we're at with this. We had our application review meeting. We have some results to report to the SIEC, and then we're in preparation for our annual meeting that is required of the existing policies and procedures, and we want to talk about what our vision is and what our goal is looking like for that. We had our meeting on April 17th to consider some materials that were submitted. We had one applicant, Everett Wittig Jr. with Bisbee Police Department. He was granted recognition, and a letter has been sent to him and the certifying official. So our Susan, as usual, has updated our list very quickly. So the current list on the site has 15 individuals from 4 counties. So that's pretty good. It's still Maricopa heavy, but we are starting to get some Sierra Vistas from northern Arizona, and we're starting to expand it a little bit, which is positive for us. Our current policies and procedures dictate that we will have an annual meeting. We are working on scheduling that. I think that's normally in June or July is when we try to do that. So I think we're targeting this summer to go back and revisit those. We typically review and update our policies and procedures, taking what we've learned in the prior year, figuring out what we need to correct and what we need to update, and that's what we intend to do this year. Right now our program is very specific to the COML. It's Arizona Regional All Hazards COML Recognition, and it's the NIMS Communications Unit work group, but pretty much everything we have is specific to Communications Unit Leader, which is what we were originally chartered to do. So that makes sense, and those documents are available, but we are looking to update those. So the next kind of iteration with that is the communications technician process. We've had 2 COMT courses that have been held in the state, one in Tucson and one in Phoenix. 32 individuals have completed that. I suspect that task books are going to be coming in fairly quickly, just because with COML we had a class but we didn't have a process. I think now people are kind of familiar with the task book procedure, and they're starting to look forward to getting those COMT books in there. Additionally, most of the people who've already completed COML are probably eligible for COMT or have completed the COMT class, and many of the objectives are the same. So I suspect that the COMT books are going to be very similar and coming in kind of quickly. So at this point, we're looking for some guidance on this in regards to the communications technician recognition process. And where do we go with that, and should we include that in our policies and procedures? Right now, we're recommending the modeling of the COMT process to follow exactly what we've done with Communications Unit Leader. The classes, the task book, the process is pretty much exactly the same. 2 different jobs, but they all fall within the Communications Unit proper. So we need to update our title, expand the scope of that to bring it beyond just the Communications Unit Leader, allow the incorporation of a Communications Technician. And eventually, I think EMI and FEMA are looking to fully develop out the communications unit itself. So the INCM, the RADO, the COMT, and the COML will all kind of fall into this. So I think we want to position ourselves to be able to accept that entire unit, not just the COML, the COMT, but eventually at some point the INCM and the RADO piece will come together. Kind of on a side note, I think the TERT program is going to maybe start filling a little bit of that INCM and RADO position, so I would like to maybe see us start to incorporate them into this. They certainly have their own credentialing process and their own method of how they do that, but I think in the spirit of the communications unit, we probably need to at least bring them in and have some conversations with them. So at this point, that's where we're at. We're looking for some guidance and direction from the SIEC as to, are we on the right path? Is this the direction we want to go with this? Do we want to make this a communications unit in its entirety and review all of those task books? I would really hesitate to probably spin off another group, just because we've worked really hard to try and get this committee together, but that's the direction we're looking for.
That would seem to make sense to me.
Symmetry and mirroring of all credentialing, I think, is essential.
And in the spirit of ICS, the COMT and the COML work hand in hand, so it makes sense to have us, approach those concurrently. I think our next steps, we obviously need to have our annual meeting, review our policies and procedures. We would certainly want input from both the SIEC, the PSCC, and stakeholders at large. If there's something that needs to be looked at, we need to review our policies, procedures. Those who've submitted books, has the process worked? Are we okay with where we're at? We do have certain things that are kind of hanging out over our head here a little bit, such as the physical credentialing. You know, where does that, you know, what kind of card do you get? Do you get a red card? Do you get a blue card? Do you get a EMI certificate? You know, what does that look like? So that's something that we're working through. Call-out procedures, reimbursement plans. We met with Pete and Matt Parks a little bit to kind of, we want to develop a procedure that can apply across the state, not just something that works for Maricopa or Canal or Pima or, you know, Cochise. It needs to be something that's consistent. And I think we're on the right path. That's something we want to address this year and maybe look at including in our procedures a little bit. So as a COML, I know, how do I get deployed? When I get deployed, what's the expectation for reimbursement? Who's paying for my time? How does my agency have to embark on that? So those are some of the things we're looking at. Our revised policies and procedures, we will get them drafted up, out for comment, and then hopefully back to the SIEC for approval, and then up to the PSCC.
You know, are those things that are or should be in the SCIP to show that they're being worked on and there's accomplishments?
You know, we currently in our SCIP, we have some discussions about COML, and in fact, in particular, the COML COMT trainings issues are both in the SCIP. The advancement of COMLs and
we've moved from develop to implement. So it did show from one iteration to the
As long
other.
as you can get some credit for it, with all the work.
yeah.
Yeah, and I notice you do have the implementation of that and actually moving it forward, and I think that's our next step. We have a good process. Fortunately, Dan, one of our workgroup members, he spends a lot of time nationally training and spends a lot of time in various states, and we actually have a pretty good process, and I think it's been one that is, you know, some people have started to look at from other states.
And that's actually coming up when I talk about our project updates, that we're being looked at on a national level. In fact, I may as well share that now. In a good way. OEC is actually partnering with the National Council of SWICs, NIMS-CU, and they are moving forward in the next few months to develop webinars for best practices for COML recognition programs. We have been tapped. We will be part of the first webinar. We're helping them develop that now. So, yes, they're looking at us in a good way.
Now,
Are you looking for a motion that we consider specifically changing your group's testing?
I don't think we'd be looking for that today. That we're looking for the direction to proceed with modifying our policies and procedures. When the policies and procedures come back before the SIEC, at that time we will be officially requesting probably the change in the scope. Today we're just making sure that we're not going to go spin our wheels next month and try and develop a new process that is not supported by the SIEC.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're obviously looking at communications unit recognition, which would be all-inclusive and everything that shows up in that communications group. And you're talking credentialing, actually. Of course, we avoided that term here in Arizona. Recognition instead. And I guess part of the question goes, and maybe we need to pick on Dan on this. So what's being done nationally? So if there's something we can do in terms of that recognition, that would get national concurrence.
Dan actually is planning on bringing that to our annual meeting. He's doing, after our last meeting on April 17th, Dan is taking that as an action item to go out and really kind of see where, and I guess the term credentialing, it's more of a credentialing card or a recognition card.
Right.
Or when you show up on scene, rather than saying, I'm just a COML and I'm here to help, how do I know, you know, I mean, I can't fly helicopters and I probably shouldn't show up and be an air boss. So those are things where they want to make sure, and I think we don't want to create something within Arizona that is not going to marry up with the federal plan. I think, unfortunately, we're moving faster than they are.
Yeah.
So we may end up with I hesitate to say maybe an interim plan until the national comes around, but Dan is researching that. He's going to bring that to our annual meeting for us to look at including in our policies and procedures.
We've been mirroring, the progress of FEMA and EMAP, the Emergency Management
Right.
Accreditation Program. And I guess my question was, since they're all techies in the comm group, would they be okay with meeting shifts?
Yeah, and we know low jack them.
And then you would have to worry about your car, we just wave the line. We know that they're, like my dog.
And we know too, ultimately, that we're not going to just show up and say, oh, here, I'm volunteering.
Right.
You show up as a requested resource.
To add a thought, at the national SWIC meetings, which we have twice a year, this is a continual topic of conversation and continues to evolve with some work groups that I'm involved with. And, we have the same questions and they're being asked, at multiple states in terms of what should we do with this. So.
And like I say, we may need just to come up with some kind of, a card would be nice, so you could carry it. Even if it just says, yes, you're recognized in the state of Arizona as a all hazards comment.
That's kind of what we're looking at, and then maybe once nationally something comes around, just, moving
Migrating that
over.
format to MAC, whatever the national trend, yeah. I think that's great strategy.
So we'll be back in maybe August with the official action items that needs to be voted upon.
And that's our hope. There's two procedures that are involved, the NIMS-CU Workgroup Policies and Procedures, which only this committee needs to provide approval on. And then also what will turn up from the COML recognition program to the communications unit recognition program, that will require your approval, and then we'll bring both items to TSCC, but they will further have to approve the recognition program document.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.